Okay.
Welcome to the AW Confidential podcast, where nothing is confidential. Today's guest says that a woman's brain is a 24-hour thinking machine, and she's damn right. She is so on point. Gina Brillon is a native New Yorker who grew up in the South Bronx, and we were just talking about that before we hopped on. The Puerto Rican actress, writer, and comedian has been making audiences laugh since the age of 17, which is insane. Her content is relatable, some would say self deprecating, but it's very real and it's funny as hell. She has been all over the place. If you have seen Easily Offended, The Floor is Lava, Pacifically Speaking, or her 2020 TED Talk, When People Are Suspiciously Kind, you'll agree that her talent is undeniable. The Latina has appeared in East Chelsea lately, The View, Late Night with Seth Meyers, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Comedy Central's Live at Gotham. She's also been seen on Kevin Can Wait, The Connors, and in 2012, Gina became the first and only Latina winner of NBC's Stand Up for Diversity. And the list goes on. Hello, Gina. Did I do you a little justice?
You did me a little justice. You did me a little justice there. I'm saying that's a mouthful. That's a mouthful. I was reading, like I'm listening to you read it, going, oh,
Mhm.
I have done that. Oh,
Yeah. A lot of guests say that. They're like, "Wow." When you hear it, it's different.
you know what's funny too? I'm listening to it going, oh, I also still have to update my bio because there's other stuff to add to it now. Like there's America's Got Talent. I was in a movie. I
That's
just
right.
shot two.
America's Got Talent. You were a contestant.
Yeah, and I just shot two other projects that are like smaller independent projects. That
Oh.
and I hope I get the info soon on when they're coming out. That were really fun, but it's like you forget how much you've done. You so it's this industry is so much. Move on to the next thing. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? That when you look
Yeah.
back, you go, "Whoo, man! I should take a breather. I should take 5 minutes and like sit down for a
That's
second."
right.
Because
And
and
congratulations because that's a lot. So I have to give you your flowers.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it.
I love your comedy. Like I said, it's relatable and it's unapologetically real. Like I connect to it, especially being from New York, being Latina, Dominican. It's like, oh my God, this sounds like all so familiar. Have you ever felt, because I have seen your comedy, have you ever felt like you've gone too far because you have mentioned that this world is very PC today. People are like super sensitive about countless topics. Have you ever gone too far?
I clearly have. I mean, if you look at my comedy specials based on today's climate, there's like a ton of microaggressions. There's aggression.
Margarita.
Yeah,
Margarita pizza. We'll never forget that.
there's like it's so funny because I think in the beginning of this whole kind of and PC things pop up. It's almost like when you watch a horror movie, every 10 years something bad happens. It's like every couple of years, language takes a huge turn. And you have the comedians that get really upset about it and forcibly go against the grain. We saw it with Lenny Bruce, we saw it somewhat with Carlin, because he played with language more so than went against it. He played with all the intricacies of language, and that was the fun part of watching something like that. And I think, like a lot of comics, when things started to change, I became really defensive of the art of stand-up comedy. And then as I slowly unpacked what was actually happening in society, I started to go, oh, I see. It's not so much that we are being controlled as it is we are being given different consequences for what we say. Because it's not that you can't say it. Nobody's going to drag you off stage. You could say it, but are you ready for the consequences that follow what you say? That's what's happening now. And it's very interesting to see
Mhm.
how people are dealing with it.
Wow. Now I've had other comedians on, and I think comedy is, it's complex. It's you have to be funny even when maybe in your life it's, things are not so funny or things are not so light. Right
Mm.
now the world is extremely heavy, and when this airs, the world will be very different. We're 1 week away from an election. So how do you tap into your funny as the world gets so intense at times? Because as much as we need you. I know that I've had bouts of depression. For me, it's either therapy or watch something funny. Kevin Hart is like something like I tap into Kevin Hart when I want to laugh. I have watched, your specials. I want to feel lighter because life is heavy enough. But how do you do it? Because this is your job. It's your passion. So how do you stay in that zone when things are really heavy?
It's hard because what you have to do, and I think what a lot of comics do, you're more like an observer of life than a participant in it. So it's like your observation brain is always going even through your own personal issues and strife. It's almost like your brain is going when something tragic happens or something difficult or a trauma happens to a comedian, we're looking at it with two different lenses. There's the lens of me, Gina, the human being. There's me who's going through something and has to go through the motions and has to feel the feelings and has to get it out. And then there's Gina the comic who's going, who else has experienced this? What are some universal things that could connect this to everybody? If I ever did want to talk about it, how could I bring it up? Is there a way to bring it up that wouldn't hurt anybody? And when it comes to world issues, all of us need a reprieve from that every now and then. And you make the active choice as a performer. Am I going to tackle these world issues in a funny, ironic, or weird way that makes everybody forget for 5 seconds that they feel
Mm.
like the world is falling apart? Or do I go irreverent, silly, and let everybody just kind of vicariously live through me and my antics so that they can forget about the world? The sky is falling for 5 seconds. So you have those two choices. Do I talk about it and make fun of it? Do I not talk about it and talk about the other aspects of life that are other things that we may not even be thinking about at this time because we're so concentrated on the big things that are happening? And that's kind of the beauty. I think that's the beauty of stand-up comedy, is that it's an art form that can be very healing, that can pull you out of depression as a performer and as an audience member. It can pull you out of that. And that's the connection that we make with people. The reason why you want to watch Kevin Hart is because there's this healing that happens for you when you get to do, even if it's just for that 1 hour that you're watching. It's like 1 hour of relief is all I need. I'm going to sit with my favorite snacks. I'm going to watch it. And I think it's honestly what has kept me going in an industry that is so difficult, is getting messages from people like, I watch your comedy during my chemotherapy sessions. I've watched your comedy after I lost somebody I loved. I've been to all of your shows. I've had so many people reach out, and that's really the fuel that kind of like, on days, because I think everybody has this, on days where I'm like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like I
I have those days every few months. It's like, what
you
am I
need
doing?
that are like, hey, no, like the people that are inspired by you, that don't see all the workings and all the things and the happenings, those people keep you going. They light a fire under you. So there is that healing thing about comedy, and the connection is so beautiful. It's priceless. You cannot put a price on that. It's what keeps people going.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm grateful for what you do because, for example, I lost my mom a year and a half ago and I leaned on, my community, my tribe, but during those moments when I was alone, I had to, throw a comedy in and just for that 1 hour just let go. And instead of sitting here crying, it was more like, okay, I'm going to laugh until I cry.
Because
And it
sometimes
was it was healing.
you need that. That's a part of healing too, when you talk about, the stages of grief. when you talk about those stages of loss, and you there's a part of that that is like the acceptance part. And I think humor helps with that acceptance part, because I think what humor does is also help you realize that, despite the ups and downs of life, despite the tragedies and traumas, life continues on. So getting stuck in one thing isn't doesn't serve you, and it's not gonna stop. Just because you want to be stuck on this one thing is not going to stop the rest of life from happening. And I think laughter really helps people move through that very difficult period and go, that's right, I have to get up tomorrow, the sun is going to come up, I have to go to work, I have to deal with this. It's a lot. So having that guide, having comedy to Sherpa you through some of life's most difficult moments is really incredible.
Well, thank you for sharing your gift with us. So, one of the other things that I use other than laughter is therapy. It's been a huge source for
Mhm.
me and for many others, especially as we, move into this space where mental health is being talked about more. It helps keep me balanced, it helps me evolve. It's To me, it has been a lifesaver. So as I continue to go through this process, I learned so much about myself. And in one of your specials, you said that therapy challenges everything you know about yourself. And it was so like that line just hit me hard because it was 100% fact. It is like it's almost like it's literally like peeling an onion to its core. What have you learned about yourself recently that has come as a surprise? Because we're always learning about ourselves, whether or not we're in therapy, just, going through this process of getting that self awareness, of evolving, of learning the lessons. Some people never learn, but that's a whole different episode. What have you learned about yourself in just recently that has come like as a surprise to you? I know you're a mom and there's a whole lot of learning in that process.
Whole lot of learning. I think probably there's a couple of things that I've had to come to terms with. I mean, when I started unpacking stuff, I had to come to terms with my own internalized toxic masculinity, working in an industry that's predominantly male, and dealing with that, always being one of the guys, and then like, just, being one of those girls that hung with the guys and okayed a lot of stuff that actually wasn't okay,
Mm.
made excuses for a lot of people, and it actually was not okay to make those excuses.
Mhm.
Realizing where that comes from, that need to fit in, and it is it's like a protection thing. It's a way that you protect yourself. It's like I became one of the guys because if I wasn't, then I would have been, it's like predator or prey. I would have been prey. I would have been either I'm going to get teased relentlessly, harassed relentlessly, or tested constantly. So in order to save myself, I did a lot of things that like, or just hung around a lot of guys that were like kind of crap. And I just made it okay. And I see the thing that's really hard when you've discovered something about yourself is not forcing that on other people when you see it in other people. I think that's the hardest thing is like, I can see somebody struggling with the same thing, and I have a choice to make, because I'm like, in that moment, I could point it out to you in the most gentle way possible, and literally risk losing a friend or somebody because I've pointed out a thing you're not ready to hear. Or I could say nothing and let you learn the lesson on your own. And that's a hard decision to make, because I think when you really care about somebody, you have to go into it knowing I'm going to say this thing and it might end this friendship, but I'd rather this friendship end because I'm telling you the truth than go the latter route and not tell you anything. And then maybe you reach the same point. And then at that point, I go, finally, now we can have this discussion. Meanwhile, that person will be like, why didn't you tell me this 3 weeks ago when this
That's
first?
a tough one though,
It's really tough because
because people have to be ready also to receive that. And that, trust me, I've had friends who have they've wanted to like smack reality into me. and it doesn't matter because I wasn't ready.
Yeah, I have friends that have bulldozed me with stuff before I was ready. And of course, they got the expected response, which is defensiveness, anger. I shut down. I don't want to hear it. It's a lot to unpack. And it takes a really good and strong relationship with somebody to be able to call them out on something that's really unhealthy. And
Oh,
there's things you learn, like there's so many different. I also learned that I'm not a nice person, I'm a kind person. And there's a
wait, break that down a little bit. You're
is a social structure norm. I'm nice. Let's say I'm nice to someone, even though I really hate them. I'm nice to them in public because that's what I should do. I'm a kind person in that I may not like you. I may not like you at all. I may not respect what you do, but I don't have to blast that from the hilltops. I'm kind enough to know that I don't mess with you, but that's where it ends for me. Nice is very fake, and it's something that women are told to be nice, be pleasant, be this. And I had to learn the difference between the two because I went through years of people pleasing and being pleasant and being nice and not.
oh, it's exhausting.
And then you move over into, no, I'm a kind person, and that I know I'm a kind person, but I am not a nice person.
I love that.
Big difference between those two.
Wow, I love that. That was good. Okay. I have to think about this because I've gone through the whole people pleasing detox, and it's
Are
decades of deprogramming.
you feel yourself relapsing every now and then where you're like, in this situation, you really, it's situation by situation. You have to go, am I people pleasing right now?
It's weird. I don't like, I don't want to describe it as an addiction, but it's almost something that is so rooted in my core that I have to continuously check myself. It wasn't until even up to a year ago, and I've gone through the process. I've done the therapy. I was doing this, and this person was literally just like it was like running over me with a train over and over, or a car over and over again. I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? It took me a year. It's hard. It's hard.
When
I was
they
like,
say
okay.
when they say carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre white man, I really believe that what they mean is stop people pleasing, because all of those, when they're talking about that specific group of people, mediocre white men, do not care if you are pleased with the situation because
That's
it's
fact.
about them. So when you carry yourself with that kind of confidence, and it's not and again, people would look at that and be like, that's mean. No, people pleasing is manipulative. People pleasing is not you being a good person. It's you not wanting to deal with conflict. It's you not wanting to deal with the situation. And that's really what it is. And hearing those words
Yeah.
after struggling with people pleasing for so long and still struggling to this day because it's a hard habit to kick. You hear those words and you go, oh God.
I call it my yes monster.
Well, it's a great way to look at it. Yes,
I
monster.
wrote an article about it because it's something that I do struggle with. And it's, I don't want to hurt people, or I want to be liked. I don't want it's just it's a whole huh?
Your own detriment. You'll even
Yeah.
do your own detriment. It won't even, the situation will not benefit you, but you will be more worried about everybody else's feelings.
Yeah.
Ain't that something?
Oh, that's some shit. I gotta tell you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that because it is a big struggle. But we're all a work in progress, working on it.
I'll tell you what, I am hand to God thankful for my homegirls who are my girl Jenna, my girl Catherine, my homegirl Sam, my girl Darren, like all of them who like have kept it so real with me to the point of like, hey, this might mess up our friendship, but I gotta tell you something. And those moments are difficult, but when you find those ride or die people those ride or die people. And I have homegirls like that. I have homeboys like that. Like I have a community of people that just will always keep it real with me and will be there for me during the struggle to let stuff like that go. Like, hey girl, you're doing it again. You're doing that
You
people pleasing.
know,
Stop saying yes. Stop doing that. How do you really feel? What are you afraid of? Like the people that are pushing you like that, gems, gems. Don't let those people go, because what happens, I think, with a lot of people, and this happens so much in entertainment, where you surround yourself with just yes people,
yep.
you cannot have only yes men around you, because your creativity, everything will start to plummet because nobody is challenging you, nobody is pushing you. And that's when you find people in life, in entertainment, stagnant. They just stay because no one is pushing you. And let me tell you something, when you think you're okay with no one pushing you, life will pull the rug out from underneath you to prove a point. Just
Fact.
know, just know the rug will be pulled out from underneath you if you don't deal with what you need to deal with. And
I
that's,
could I could feel what you're saying. Like you're definitely when it comes to the school of life, you're in it. Like you definitely are going through that process and
yes.
you're literally like present for every moment. I could tell.
Yeah, oh, 100%. I appreciate that, because 100% I am. Like, life, life got hands on her. Life got some hands.
Oof.
She has
Which
put them
so, like,
doubled up with life, and that she could fight. She
but we're fighters too. We're fighters too.
It's to your benefit when you get it. It's like anything. You got to go through the fire to make it out through the other side. And when you get to the other side, you don't think you're gonna, when you're in the middle of a fire, you don't think you're gonna get to the other side. You never see yourself as getting to, all you see is the fire in front of you.
That's true.
But you got to know that on the other side of that fire is everything you could ever want. You just got to get through the fire. And I know it's easier said than done, but it's like every day I remind myself, you just got to get through the fire. That's it. Just get through the fire.
Oof, I felt that today. I felt
Yeah.
that today, Gina. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much. So your comedy, I'm telling you, like everything you're saying, I feel it to the core. And I was watching your late the last special, the Floor is Lava. And in your comedy, you talk about love, you talk about marriage, you talk about dating, relationships, men. Just you literally just it's a 360. And I love that. And you said, and this shit just it just hit. You said that when a man sees a red flag, he says, I'm out. When a woman sees a red flag, she's like, oh, a project.
Mm-hmm.
Been there too. So I wanted to know while you were dating, because you are married, right? Were you good at seeing those red flags? Did you run or did you take up some projects? Because I know I've had many projects and I'm done doing construction.
Girl, I saw not one red flag, and they were in my face. They were like, in retrospect, when I go over, and my husband's great. I love my husband. He's an amazing human being. The work that we've done on ourselves individually and as a couple, like, understand that nothing is smooth as peanut butter. No relationship. If you're not arguing in your relationship, somebody's lying. I'm just telling you right up, straight up now. It's not like you have to have fights constantly, but if there aren't any disagreements, somebody is lying, because you're combining two lives. There's going to be some upsets. Now, what you hope to build with an individual is enough communication and enough honesty and trust and vulnerability that in those difficult moments, you know that you can share how you're feeling without being attacked. You can share what you're going through without being judged. And that's, a continuous journey, I think, for couples and for people. Um, when I look back at my other relationships, there's times when I've told stories to my husband, and this is so funny to me. And I used to have a bit about this, so it's so funny that this happened with him too, where I would not see red flags to the point where I could be telling you a story about a relationship I'm in, and you would be like, girl, that is not okay. Like my husband would be like, oh my God. And
I
I would
have one. Oh my God, I get it.
Tuesday when I was in that relationship, like that was so normal. But people would be horrified. And I'd be like, oh yeah, at that time I had the blinders on and I was just so oblivious.
Girl, I had a boyfriend when I was in my 20s. He used to have all female friends, right? And he used to kiss all of them on the mouth, and I used to see it, and I was like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "No, they're all friends." I was like, "Oh."
About the kissing on the mouth thing. Time out. Time out.
He's like, "They were friends." And my friend saw one day, she was like, "Is this okay with you?" I was like, "I don't know. He says he kisses his friends on the mouth."
This is why I say nice, not kind, because I would have openly made out with a friend of mine right in front of him. It's a friend, bro.
But
That's just
now I look back and I'm like, "What the
the
fuck was
toxic in
I
that moment. But yeah, that's the thing. You're oblivious to it.
what the hell?"
The things you okay, and then you look back and you go, wow. You know,
I know.
I don't like to look back on the person I formerly was and go because everybody goes through metamorphosis and changes. I think it's ridiculous to think that everybody's going to stay the same. And if you stay the same, then it's time to challenge yourself. It's time for you to grow. You should not stay the same. You should actually grow and change as an individual because life happens. And when
Oh,
I back at that former version of myself, and I look back at all the red flags and all the things she excused, I don't hate her. I don't think she's stupid. I don't, I don't get angry at her pendejadas. I don't get mad at her. I go, oh God, I wish she would have had more love. I wish I would have given her what she needed
mm,
to not be there. But if she wasn't there, I wouldn't be here. So she's part of the journey
wow.
to here. So you have to accept her and love her and understand her and not judge her, which is the hardest thing because you want to go back and you want to be so mad at that version of yourself. But it really is about that person is still, she's still here. She's still here. She's still part of me. And there was a beautiful part of her that was innocent, that was taken advantage of. And of course, she ignored those red flags because people will see you. And, I was like a little fawn just trying to be everybody's friend. And, there were so many things about that girl that when I look back and I go, oh man, 20-year-old Gina, teenage Gina, little Gina. And when you go on your healing journey, you look back at all those different versions of you, and it's really hard to pull yourself out of the judgment and to learn to see that person with love, even at her worst moments. Because let me tell you something, I was, there are people out there in these streets that absolutely hate me for good reason. You know what I mean? Like, nobody is their 100% best self all the time. And I have made some doozies of bad choices. You know what I
We
mean?
all have.
I will never, ever, 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 ever claim sainthood. I'm not that person.
None of us are saints, girl.
None of us. So you look back on that person and you just go, I really wish, I could apologize to that person. But at the same time, I know just hearing my name would upset them if they're not healed from that trauma. And I don't want to bring that up for them. Like for myself, I have to forgive myself for those moments, which is really hard because ain't nobody a bigger critic of you than you.
Absolutely.
We are our biggest bullies, our biggest criticizers. And so I went through a lot of unpacking in therapy of not judging and hating my former self, which I think is part of the healing process too, and going, yep, that
Mhm.
was, yep, that was it. She did that. She was
But
disrespectful.
I'm
She
but I'm
did it.
glad you said that because we all have there's different sides to us, right? And we have to embrace the good, the bad, the ugly, and
Mm,
it takes time. It takes, well, therapy. It takes
yeah.
a lot of
Takes
forgiveness.
it takes a lion's share of forgiveness has to be given to self.
And I think grace too.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
just,
Oh my
uh,
God. I was always like, give yourself grace, Gina, give yourself grace. Because I
I
would,
still have to remind myself sometimes,
yeah,
like,
like it's okay. It's okay to need to
yeah,
give yourself grace in that moment, whether it's
absolutely.
whatever it's for. You just need to learn to give yourself that grace. We're not taught that. It's so funny how we are literally conditioned to give it to everybody else but ourselves.
I've heard that if I have a nickel for every time I've heard that. I don't know
If
why. I don't know why we do that.
we could give ourselves the love that we so freely give to everybody else, it would make for a different world.
Yeah. Oh. Gina, you're so amazing. Had no idea you were going to be this amazing. So,
Well,
one of the things one of the things that I love to do towards the end of interviews is ask for a quote mantra piece of advice. We share our life stories as a podcaster, a writer, as a comedian to help others heal, laugh, feel inspired, or just give hope that things will get better. What is your best life advice that you would give your younger self?
oof.
Little Gina.
Um, and this is gonna probably sound very cliche, but I think it's an important point to make. If I could talk to younger Gina, the biggest point I would make to her is you cannot love anybody else until you love yourself.
Mhm.
That would be the biggest, because until you show yourself that kind of love, you're giving all that love away to someone else with no one to fill your cup. You have to be able to fill your cup with that love in order to fill someone else's cup or give them from my cup has to be overflowing. And I've heard this talked about before. This idea of an overflowing cup is what I need. I forget the woman's name who I just saw a clip from her who did it. I'm sure somebody will know. Who talks about it. She's like a wellness coach kind of person. And I remember hearing it and going, God, if I could only have said that to younger me and said, make sure that you love yourself first, because part of that not being able to see red flags is not feeling worthy enough to be with somebody who doesn't have those red flags. And that
Mhm.
self-worth comes from learning to love yourself. I am just now really getting to a place of even starting the process of loving myself as much as I have loved other people. And that I really hope that for this next generation, for the younger generations who are so beautifully bold and so beautifully opinionated and strong in ways that my generation definitely wasn't, that they learn and they accept that for themselves first, that love has to come for you first.
I'm still working on that overflowing that cup. Still working on it.
Yes.
But thank you for sharing that. So one of the things I like to do, this is bonus. I've been doing this for a little while, is choose a card from my deck. It's a game called We Connect.
Ooh,
And oh yeah. And it's a random question. I don't know what they are. I've actually never gone into the box. So I pick
okay.
one for every guest. So I'm gonna pick one for you. Let's see. Here. They get stuck. All right. What is one of your favorite topics of conversation?
Mm.
Ooh.
I have two, well, three now. Um, my top three, I can talk about comedy forever. You will not get me to shut up. If you start me talking about, I'm a comedy nerd. If you get me talking about comedy, I will not shut up. I will just keep going. Second to comedy is relationships. I love talking about relationships.
Mm.
I
We
love
got to get together.
love talking about relationships. I love breaking stuff down about relationships. I love hearing stories about relationships and dissecting stuff. And then the final thing is therapy. You hit all three with today. You hit all three of my
Oh, yes.
is the next one that it's like it's very difficult, obviously, to unpack a lot about therapy, but because more and more people are now openly talking about being in therapy, now it's the conversations about it are getting deeper and so much more beautiful about people's journeys. So those are my top three. Get me on one of those, you're good for hours. I will not shut up.
I love that. Gina, thank you so much for joining me today. You're amazing. You're beautiful and your light comes like I literally felt your light today. Thank you for sharing it with me. You almost made me cry, but I kept it together. I have cried on the podcast. Um I want
That's a human thing. Cry away. It's a beautiful thing.
I want to make sure our community knows how to find you. What do you have going on next? I know you do have something in 2025 because I saw a post somewhere, but please share.
Doing Lady World over in Miramar Beach. Tickets are on sale now for 2025. You can check the links in my bio on Instagram. My You can find me on Instagram at G Brillon, on TikTok at Gina Brillon, and then on Facebook is Gina Brillon. Website is ginabrillon.com. To keep up with me, my website is under construction. So
Yes,
like
I saw that.
there and it's a little messy. It's because there's been some changeovers and we're trying to update the website. But you can always keep up with me online and find out where I'm going to be because I'm constantly posting videos about
Yes.
where next up I will be in at the Comedy Zone in Greenville, South Carolina, coming up soon. And then and then other stuff is coming up that I will announce when I can.
Ah, well, thank you for being here today. And thank you, loves, for joining us on this episode of the AW Confidential podcast. Talk to you soon.